Hello, my name is Abby Horan and welcome to my TIEP presentation. My IEP domain is employment and the setting I selected was pre-K to 8 push-in. My PA standards both fall under the Family and Consumer Sciences section. The first standard is, indicate the benefits and costs of working as an individual or as a team member and of being a leader or follower. The second standard is to identify how to resolve conflict using interpersonal communication skills. This includes speaking and listening, iMessages, active listening, checking for understanding, following directions, empathy, and feedback. The challenge I chose was number 11. The student takes on a bossy role when a whole class or small group activity occurs. As such, their peers have worked to avoid the student and exclude them in small social moments. The student need is that the student, Kyle, needs to learn how to take on different roles when in a group or team setting. The targeted specific skill is that the student needs to learn to work in small groups with his similar aged peers without being bossy. The observable and measurable goal is, given chances during class time to work in small groups with his similar aged peers, Kyle will take a different group role, a leader, listener, or recorder, each class and be a positive, humble group member to successfully earn a 3 out of 3 on the small group checklist, Appendix A, given no more than one prompt by the teacher. The IEP and service activity is, Kyle will work with his similar aged peers in small groups on worksheets and projects during class time, and will take on a different role of a group member, such as the leader, listener, or recorder, with a humble and positive attitude as seen in Appendix B. The location of this will take place during each class period. His classes include math, reading, writing, social studies, science, and Spanish. The frequency is every day, and the persons and agency responsible will be the classroom teacher, IEP team, and the student. Here's a look at my assessment tool, the Small Group Position Checklist. Teachers will be using this tool to assist Kyle in group work. I have posted a copy of this assessment tool on D2L discussion board. All information discussed in this tool relates to Kyle's IEP observable and measurable goal. In the tool, it asks for the student's name and the name of the team member tracking the progress. In Section A, it asks about the goal and how it directly connects to the service or activity. It says, given chances during class time to work in small groups with his similar aged peers, Kyle will take a different group role, leader, listener, or recorder each class, and be a positive and humble group member to successfully earn a 3 out of 3 on the Small Group Position Checklist, Appendix A, given no more than one prompt by a teacher. Section B states, the student need this service or activity connects with is, the student, Kyle, needs to learn how to take on different roles in a group or team setting. Section C, skill focus. The student needs to learn to work in small groups with his similar aged peers without being bossy. Section D, the IEP transition domain connection is employment for this presentation. Section E is the wording of the transition grid service/activity in their current IEP. It states that Kyle will work with his similar aged peers in small groups on worksheets and projects during class time and will take on different roles of a group member, such as a leader, listener, or recorder with a positive and humble attitude. See Appendix B. In Section F, the observable and measurable goal aligned with this assessment tool, which was previously stated in this presentation, but once again, it is, given chances during class time to work in small groups with his similar aged peers, Kyle will take on a different group role, leader, listener, or recorder, each class, and be a positive and humble member to successfully earn a 3 out of 3 on the Small Group Position Checklist, given no more than one prompt by his teacher. This is the checklist that Kyle's classroom teachers will use to keep track of his progress. When the student enters class, he will hand this checklist to his classroom teacher. In the first column, the teacher will put a check or an X where Kyle worked during small group work. If the class did not call for group work that day, the teacher will leave the row blank in order to not skew any final data. In the second column, the teacher will mark if Kyle had a positive and humble attitude during group work. In the next slide, it shows Appendix B, which states the exact definition of a positive and humble attitude. In the third column, the teacher marks an X or a check by the box if Kyle didn't need a teacher prompt or if he only needed one prompt. The teacher will sign at the end of each class period to prove that he or she has completed the chart. They will also mark the number out of 3 that Kyle has earned for the day. The last period teacher will also average the day's scores at the bottom where it says total average. This is Appendix B, where I have identified the exact definition of a positive and humble attitude that Kyle should be exhibiting during group work. Appendix B states, the student will be scored on having a positive and humble attitude during group work. A positive attitude will be defined as participating actively in the small group activity, working with others to complete a task, and being friendly to his group members. A humble attitude will be defined as having the same importance and rank as the rest of the group members, which means actively taking on the role of a leader, listener, or recorder. This is the assessment tool scoring procedures. The student will fill out the date on the sheet themselves. The student will carry the sheet from class to class and will hand it to the classroom teacher when he walks into the room. At the end of the class, the teacher will hand the paper back to the student, completed, and with a signature under the name of the subject to prove that he or she has filled it out. At the end of the day, the student will hand the sheet back to his homeroom teacher, and at the end of each week, the homeroom teacher will average his progress for the week. Column 1. The classroom teacher will write his or her initials under the appropriate class, after the class is over and after the appropriate section has been completed. Column number 2. The appropriate classroom teacher will write an X to show which position the student held during small group work, leader, listener, or recorder. Column number 3. The teacher will refer to Appendix B to determine if the student had a positive, humble attitude during small group work. Column 4. The teacher will write an X if he or she only prompted the student to be a positive and humble team member, and if the student needs a reminder of which role he is, 0 to 1 times. The exceptions include, if there is no small group work done during a specific class period, the teacher will leave that row empty, but will still initial the appropriate class. This is so that they do not skew the data. This is a continuation of the assessment tool, which the IEP team will fill out to determine if the student has met his observable and measurable goal, any observations or recommendations, and to see if the team wants to continue to administer the assessment. The qualitative data this tool tracks is the student's involvement in small group work, the student's attitude and interactions during small group work, and the student's ability to communicate and collaborate with each classroom teacher. The data also allows the IEP team to track daily progress, average weekly progress, and to track qualitative data trends. This chart shows the present level data collection for Kyle over the months of March and April. To repeat, the IEP service and activity is Kyle will work with his similar aged peers on worksheets and projects during class time, and will take on a different role of a group member, such as the leader, listener, or recorder, with a positive and humble attitude. In March, Kyle scored an average of a 2 out of a 3 on the small group checklist. In April, Kyle scored an average of 3 out of 3 on the small group checklist. There are not many resources or costs for this activity. The resources needed are the small group checklist, printed, classroom teachers to participate in the completion of the checklist, and the small group work during class. The costs include the time and effort of all classroom teachers and printed checklists for every day of the week. Big picture connections. Number 1. How is acquiring this skill going to increase post-school success for students in the pre-K through 8 with disabilities? Acquiring the skill is going to increase post-school success for students in the pre-K through 8 with disabilities by helping the student learn how to be more positive and personable when working with others, and by getting in the habit of working as a team member without being seen as bossy. Number 2. Connect your skill to published evidence that reinforces the necessity for students to learn this skill. Chapter 5 of our text, Universal Design for Transition and Employment, states, students with disabilities are more likely to be fired from a job because of their lack of social skills, rather than their inability to perform the more technical aspects of the job. This quote discusses social skills in students with disabilities. In the challenge I discussed, number 11, it states that the student Kyle's peers have excluded him in social moments because of his bossy tendencies in small group work. Learning how to interact positively and humbly in social school settings will help Kyle's social skills now and in the future. Thank you for listening to my TIEP video about employment. Don't forget to share your feedback. Number 1. What alternate service or activities did you come up with that would also work to meet this need of the student? Number 2. Which of the 12 self-determination skills do you think this service or activity works to strengthen in the student and why? And number 3. What agencies, organizations, and/or programs exist that may be able to help provide additional support to meet the need and/or provide the service or activity? Thank you.